My name is Nick Sullivan, and I'm a 42-year-old contractor who thought he knew his wife. That was before I found her phone buzzing at 2 in the morning on our kitchen counter, screen lighting up like a neon sign advertising my stupidity. Either our marriage is alive or someone else is, I muttered to myself, standing in my boxers on the cold linoleum floor of our modest New England home. The October rain hammered against the windows, and across the street, Mrs. Delaney's bedroom light glowed, like she was keeping watch over the whole neighborhood's secrets. I shouldn't have looked, but 20 years of marriage teaches you when something's wrong, and Jenna had been distant for months. Those girls' nights every Thursday, the way she'd shower immediately after coming home, how she'd started buying new lingerie that I never saw her wear. The text message was from someone named L in her contacts. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. Your husband really has no clue, does he? You're right. He thinks he's so clever, but he'd never see you coming. My hands shook as I scrolled up. Months of messages, explicit photos, plans, mockery. My wife Jenna and her boss Liam talking about me like I was some kind of pathetic joke. He actually asked if I wanted to renew our vows for our anniversary, one message read, followed by crying laughing emojis. Liam's response, poor bastard. Does he still think you're working late on the Morrison project? He believes everything I tell him. 20 years of being the good little contractor's wife, and now I'm finally living. I set the phone down carefully in my contractor's hands, hands that had built half the decks in this town, trembling like I was 90 years old. The house suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. This was the same kitchen where Jenna had cried 5 years ago, begging me to take her back after she'd demanded an open marriage experience before we had kids. I'd driven her to her parents' house that night, left her standing in their driveway in the rain, thinking it was over. But she'd called, sobbing, promising it was just cold feet about commitment. I was the idiot who believed her. Now I understood why we never had those kids. The next message was time-stamped for tomorrow. Usual place, 7 p.m. Room 12 at the Riverside Motel. Wear the red dress, the one your husband paid for. I memorized the details, then put her phone back exactly where I'd found it. Upstairs, Jenna was sleeping peacefully, her auburn hair spread across the pillow like she didn't have a care in the world. 20 years of shared dreams, mortgage payments, and quiet Sunday mornings, and she was throwing it away for her smug boss, who drove a BMW and wore suits that cost more than most people's rent. But here's the thing about being a contractor. You learn to plan carefully before you start demolition. Rush the job, and the whole structure comes down on your head. I went to my workshop in the basement and sat among my tools, thinking. By dawn, I had a plan. The next evening, I parked my pickup truck behind the dumpster at the Riverside Motel and waited. The place was exactly what you'd expect. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign, the kind of establishment that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. At 7:15, Jenna's silver Honda pulled in, followed by Liam's pristine black BMW. I watched them meet in the parking lot, watched him grab her ass like he owned her, watched her laugh like she was 20 years old again. They disappeared into room 12. I waited another hour, letting my anger crystallize into something harder and more useful. Then I walked over to Liam's BMW with a tire iron from my truck. The windshield spiderwebbed beautifully with one solid hit. Safety glass held together, but the message was clear. I left a note under his windshield wiper. Careful where you park. Some neighborhoods aren't safe for fancy cars. A concerned citizen. I was back in my truck and gone before they knew what happened. But as I drove past Mrs. Delaney's house, I saw her bedroom curtain fall back into place. The old woman had seen everything, and in a town this size, that meant everyone would know by morning. When I got home, Jenna was already there, sitting at the kitchen table in that red dress, her arms crossed. Where were you tonight? She asked, her voice cold as January. Working late. The Henderson job is behind schedule. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, playing it casual. How was girls' night? It was fine. She studied my face, like she was looking for cracks. You seem different lately, more controlling. It's not attractive, Nick. The audacity was breathtaking. She was cheating on me with her boss, and somehow I was the problem. Just tired, I guess. This business doesn't run itself. I took a long drink of beer, watching her over the bottle. Maybe we should talk about taking that vacation you mentioned. Get away from all the stress. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or calculation. I can't get away right now. Big project at work. Right, the Morrison project. She nodded quickly. Too quickly. The next morning, Mrs. Delaney was waiting by her mailbox when I left for work. Her gray hair in curlers and her eyes bright with gossip. Exciting night last night, she said, her voice carrying that particular tone that meant the whole town would hear about this before lunch. Saw some interesting activity around the neighborhood. Is that right? Oh, yes. Some people think they can do whatever they want, but the truth always comes out, doesn't it, Nick? I tipped my baseball cap to her. Yes, ma'am, it certainly does. But as I drove to my job site, I realized the rumors would start flying, and once they did, there'd be no going back. Jenna would know I knew, and the war would begin in earnest. I was looking forward to it. The rumors started exactly as I'd predicted. By Thursday, 3 different people had called to ask if everything was okay at home. My foreman Danny pulled me aside at the job site to say his wife had heard some things at the grocery store. You know how people talk in this town, Danny said, adjusting his hard hat. But if you need anything, boss, you just say the word. I appreciated the loyalty, but I had bigger problems. Jenna had started watching me like I was a bomb that might explode, and her girls' nights had suddenly become working late at the office. Same lie, different packaging. That's when I decided to visit Eli's gym. Eli Kowalski ran a boxing gym in the basement of an old textile mill, the kind of place where the mirrors were cracked and the heavy bags were held together with duct tape. I'd been going there since I was 16, back when my dad thought I needed to learn to handle myself. Eli was pushing 70 now, but he still moved like a fighter, all coiled muscle and sharp eyes. You look like hell, he said when I walked in Thursday night. The gym smelled like sweat and old leather, honest smells that reminded me there were still places in the world where things were exactly what they seemed. Feel like it too, I started wrapping my hands. Marriage troubles. Eli had been married to the same woman for 45 years. He understood the weight of that statement. She cheating? No point in lying to Eli. Yeah. He nodded slowly like he'd seen this movie before. You gonna do something stupid? Probably. Good. Just make sure it's the right kind of stupid. He held up the focus mitts. Don't fight in the open where everyone can see you bleed. Make them pay in the dark. I spent an hour beating the hell out of those mitts, working out the rage and frustration until my hands ached and my mind was clear. By the time I left, I had a new plan. The next night was Jenna's firm's annual gala, some charity fundraiser at the fancy hotel downtown. She'd bought a new black dress for the occasion, on our joint credit card, naturally, and spent 2 hours getting ready. You clean up nice, I told her as we walked into the hotel ballroom. She did look beautiful, which made everything worse somehow. Try to behave yourself tonight, she said, adjusting my tie like I was a child she was embarrassed to be seen with. These are important people. The ballroom was full of architects and contractors, city planners, and real estate developers. I knew most of them professionally, but tonight I felt like an outsider looking in. Jenna immediately disappeared into a cluster of her coworkers, leaving me at the bar. That's where Liam found me. Nick Sullivan, right? He appeared beside me, all confident smiles and expensive cologne. I'm Liam Morrison. I work with your lovely wife. I shook his hand, noting the soft palm, the manicured nails. This was the man my wife preferred over me. Nice to meet you, I lied. Jenna talks about you all the time. Does she? His smile got wider. She's incredibly talented, very dedicated to her work. The way he said dedicated made my jaw clench. I ordered another whiskey and tried to look casual. She certainly puts in the hours, all those late nights, weekend projects. The Morrison account keeps her very busy. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe amusement. Actually, we wrapped the Morrison project last month. Jenna must be working on something else. The bastard was playing with me, seeing how much I knew. Time to return the favor. My mistake. Must be the Henderson project then. Or maybe it was the Johnson renovation? Hard to keep track of all her projects. Now he was studying me more carefully, trying to figure out if I was as clueless as I was pretending to be. Your wife is very good at handling multiple projects simultaneously, he said. Very flexible. That's when I accidentally bumped into him. It wasn't a hard bump, just enough to make him stumble backward into the CEO of his firm, a stern woman in her 60s who was holding a full glass of red wine. The wine went everywhere, down her white dress, across her shoes, splashing onto two other board members. Jesus Christ, Liam, she snapped. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm sorry, Margaret, this idiot. He spun around to point at me, but I was already 3 feet away looking concerned and helpful. Oh no, what happened? I asked, grabbing napkins from the bar. Here, let me help. While Liam tried to explain how he'd somehow managed to assault his boss with a wine glass, I played the helpful bystander, cleaning up the mess and expressing appropriate sympathy. By the time it was over, Margaret Morrison was furious with Liam and grateful to me. At least someone here has manners, she said, glaring at Liam. That's when Jenna appeared, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Nick, what did you do? I helped clean up after your colleague's accident. Maybe you should teach him how to hold a wine glass. Don't. Her voice was low and dangerous. Don't embarrass me here. Embarrass you? I looked around at the crowd that had gathered to watch the drama. I'm not the one who can't handle his liquor. Liam was still trying to apologize to his boss, who was having none of it. Other partners were shaking their heads, and I could see the gossip spreading through the room like wildfire. Jenna grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. We're leaving, now. But the night's just getting started. I raised my voice slightly, just enough for nearby tables to hear. I'd like to propose a toast to true love, open marriages, and the Morrison project that wrapped up last month. The color drained from her face. She knew that I knew. Get in the car, she hissed. The ride home was silent except for the sound of her breathing, quick and angry. When we got to the house, she exploded. How long have you known? Long enough. You bastard. You planned that whole thing. Did I? Or did your boyfriend just have an accident because he was too busy thinking about his next lie? She started pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. This is exactly why I needed something else. You're controlling, paranoid, jealous. I'm jealous, I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Jenna, you've been fucking your boss for months and lying to my face about it. But somehow I'm the villain here? Yes, because you can't just let me be happy. You have to make everything about you, about your hurt feelings, about your precious ego. My ego? Jesus Christ. Listen to yourself. You're rewriting history to make yourself the victim. I am the victim. I've been trapped in this marriage, in this house, in this life that I never really wanted. And when I finally find something that makes me feel alive again, you have to destroy it. The honesty was brutal, but at least it was honest. Then why didn't you just leave? Why the lies, the sneaking around, the humiliation? Because I didn't want to hurt you. The words came out small and pathetic, and we both knew they were bullshit. Right. That's why you and Liam spent months laughing about what a clueless idiot I am. Her face went white. How did you? Your phone. Tuesday night. I read everything. She sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs, like her strings had been cut. What do you want? She asked finally. I want my wife back. But she's gone, isn't she? Has been for a while. She didn't answer, and which was answer enough. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. But I did. Because while she'd been planning her new life, I'd been planning too. And unlike her, I was good at seeing projects through to completion. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Mason Reeves had been handling legal work for contractors in our town for 30 years. His office smelled like cigarettes and old coffee, and his desk was buried under stacks of papers that somehow made perfect sense to him. Divorce? And he asked, leaning back in his chair that squeaked like a dying mouse. Eventually. But first, I need to protect myself. Joint accounts, assets, the business. Mason nodded, making notes on a yellow legal pad. Smart. How much does she know about your finances? Everything. She handles the books for the business. Shit. He looked up from his notes. That complicates things. Has she been stealing? Not money. But she's been feeding information to her lover's firm. Project bids, client lists, schedules. Nothing illegal, just dirty. Industrial espionage. Harder to prove, but it shows intent to harm the business. More notes. I can start moving assets into protected accounts, but it'll take time. And once we start, she'll know what's coming. Good. I want her to know. Mason studied me over his reading glasses. Nick, I've known you for 15 years. You're not a vindictive man. Don't let this change that. Maybe it's time for a change. I spent the weekend moving money, canceling credit cards, and changing passwords. By Monday morning, Jenna's access to our joint accounts was cut off. She discovered it when she tried to buy coffee on her way to work. You son of a bitch, she said when she called me. My card was declined. Sorry to hear that. Maybe there's a problem with the bank. Don't play games with me, Nick. I know what you did. I protected my assets from further theft. Seemed like the responsible thing to do. Theft? I never stole anything from you. Just my wife, my trust, and my business information. But you're right. Technically, that's not theft. It's just betrayal. She hung up on me. That afternoon, I got a call from Danny at the job site. Boss, we got a problem. Someone called the city inspector, said we were working without permits on the Henderson job. We have permits. I know. But the inspector's coming anyway, and you know how that goes. Delays, paperwork, bullshit. I knew exactly who had made that call. Jenna knew all our projects, all our schedules. This was her way of fighting back. Handle the inspector, Danny. I've got some business to take care of. I drove to the parking garage where Liam kept his BMW. The car had been repaired since my tire iron introduction, but it was about to have another accident. I'd stopped at the fish market on the way over. It took me 10 minutes to remove the cabin air filter and pack the space with shrimp, mackerel, and a few pieces of particularly ripe fish. Then I replaced the filter and turned the air conditioning to maximum. In a day or two, when the fish started really decomposing, his car would become uninhabitable, but that was just the appetizer. I'd been thinking about what Eli said about fighting in the dark. Jenna and Liam thought they were so clever, so careful, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. That evening, I called the local newspaper's gossip columnist, a woman named Patricia, who'd been documenting our town's scandals for 20 years. Patricia, it's Nick Sullivan. I've got a story you might find interesting. Oh, you know how everyone's always wondering about the personal lives of our city's business leaders? Well, I happened to come across some information about certain architectural firms and their unconventional management practices. I didn't give her names, didn't make accusations. I just asked innocent questions about professional ethics and workplace relationships, planted seeds that would grow into larger questions. Patricia was smart enough to do her own digging. The article ran 3 days later. Questions raised about professional conduct at local architecture firm. It was carefully worded to avoid libel, but anyone who knew the players could read between the lines. By Friday, Jenna was fired. She was waiting for me when I got home from work, sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine and a look that could have melted steel. Congratulations, she said. You destroyed my career. I didn't do anything. I just asked some questions. Bullshit. You orchestrated this whole thing. Did I? Or did your boss finally realize that sleeping with married employees might be bad for business? You're enjoying this, aren't you? The honest answer was yes, I was. For months, she'd been pulling strings, manipulating situations, making me dance to her tune without even knowing there was music playing. Now it was my turn to conduct the orchestra. I'm enjoying the truth finally coming out, aren't you? She poured herself another glass of wine, her hands shaking slightly. What do you want from me, Nick? An apology? Groveling? What will it take for you to stop? I want you to understand what you threw away. 20 years of marriage, a home, a future. For what? A few months of excitement with a man who threw you under the bus the second things got complicated? He didn't throw me under the bus. The firm had to make a business decision. Right, and where's Liam now? Is he here? supporting you through this difficult time? Or is he at home with his wife, pretending none of this ever happened? The way her face crumpled told me everything I needed to know. Liam had abandoned her the moment the scandal broke, leaving her to face the consequences alone. You don't understand, she said quietly. You don't know what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like your life is just passing by while you watch. So you decided to blow it up instead of talking to me about it. Would you have listened? Really listened? Or would you have tried to fix it with a vacation or a new kitchen or some other band-aid solution? The question hung in the air between us, and I realized I didn't know the answer. Maybe she was right. Maybe I would have tried to solve her problems instead of understanding them. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. We'll never know now, will we? She finished her wine and stood up, swaying slightly. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while. Give us both some space to think. Good idea. She paused at the kitchen door. This isn't over, Nick. You think you've won something, but all you've done is prove that you're just as capable of cruelty as anyone else. How does that feel? After she left, I sat in the quiet house, surrounded by 20 years of shared memories, and tried to answer her question. How did it feel to discover I could be vindictive, manipulative, ruthless? It felt like power, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. But I wasn't done yet, because while I'd been focused on Jenna and Liam, I'd missed the real puppet master behind this whole mess. Tracy Morrison, Jenna's best friend and Liam's sister-in-law, had been conspicuously absent from all the drama. Too absent. And suddenly, I remembered why that name sounded familiar. 5 years ago, I'd fired Tracy from a bookkeeping job at my company. She'd been skimming money, nothing major, but enough to matter. I'd given her the choice between prosecution and quiet resignation. She'd chosen resignation, but she'd never forgiven me. Now I understood why Jenna had suddenly developed doubts about our marriage. Tracy had been whispering poison in her ear for years, encouraging her dissatisfaction, pushing her toward the affair. It was time to have a conversation with Tracy. I found Tracy at her usual Tuesday night spot, the wine bar downtown where she held court with the other divorced women of our social circle. She was holding a glass of Chardonnay and explaining to her audience why marriage was an outdated institution designed to oppress women. Nick, she said when she saw me approach, her voice bright with fake surprise. What brings you here? Shouldn't you be home fixing something? The other women at the table shifted uncomfortably. Everyone in town knew about Jenna and me by now. Actually, I wanted to thank you, I said, pulling up an empty chair, for being such a good friend to my wife. Tracy's smile faltered slightly. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. All those girls' nights, all that advice about finding herself, about not settling for less than she deserved. You really helped her see the light. Jenna made her own choices. With your encouragement, just like you encouraged her to share information about my business with Liam's firm. Now, the other women were really uncomfortable, gathering their purses and making excuses to leave. Within minutes, Tracy and I were alone at the table. You can't prove anything, she said. I don't need to prove anything. I just need to understand why. Was it about the money you stole? Because honestly, Tracy, $5,000 seems like a pretty cheap price for destroying a marriage. Her face went red. You humiliated me. You could have handled that situation privately, but you made sure everyone knew what happened. I gave you a choice. You made the wrong one, just like you're making the wrong one now. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. It means I know about your little arrangement with your brother-in-law, how you set up the meetings, provided the alibis, even suggested the motel. You didn't just encourage the affair, Tracy. You orchestrated it. You're insane. Am I? Because I've got phone records showing calls between you and Liam going back 8 months. I've got credit card receipts showing you paid for that motel room the first 3 times. And I've got a very interesting recording of you telling Jenna that I'd never see it coming because I was too stupid to notice what was happening under my own nose. That last part was a bluff. But Tracy didn't know that. Her face went white. What do you want? I want you to call Jenna and tell her the truth. Tell her how you manipulated her, used her unhappiness to get revenge on me. Tell her how you convinced her that having an affair was empowering instead of destructive. And if I don't, then I make some phone calls of my own. To your ex-husband, for starters. He might be interested to know why his alimony payments are really so important to you. And to the IRS, because I'm pretty sure you haven't been reporting all your income. Tracy stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I really knew versus how much I was guessing. You've changed, she said finally. The Nick Sullivan I used to know would never threaten a woman. The Nick Sullivan you used to know trusted people. That man is gone. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed Jenna's number. Jenna, it's Tracy. We need to talk. I listened as Tracy confessed everything. How she'd planted doubts about our marriage, how she'd encouraged the affair, how she'd helped coordinate the meetings. Jenna's voice came through the phone, getting louder and more furious with each revelation. You used me, Jenna said finally. You used my marriage as your weapon against Nick. Jenna, please. But Jenna had hung up. Tracy set down her phone and looked at me with something like respect. Congratulations. You just destroyed the last friendship your wife had left. No, Tracy. You did that the day you decided to use her pain as your personal revenge fantasy. I left her sitting alone at the table and walked out into the cool October night. The air felt cleaner somehow, like a storm had passed and washed the atmosphere clean. But I wasn't finished yet. The next morning, I sent Jenna a text. Meet me at the old marina at sunset. Time to end this. She responded an hour later. Fine, but I'm bringing Tracy and Liam. Whatever you have to say, you can say to all of us. Perfect. The abandoned marina sat at the edge of town, a collection of rotting docks and empty boat slips that had been closed for 5 years. It was the kind of place where people went to have conversations they didn't want overheard, surrounded by the smell of salt water and decay. I got there first and waited on the main dock, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. At exactly 6 o'clock, Jenna's Honda pulled into the gravel parking lot, followed by Liam's BMW and Tracy's red Camry. They approached as a group, like they were afraid I might attack them individually. Jenna looked tired and angry, Tracy looked nervous, and Liam looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. All right, Nick, Jenna said. We're here. What do you want? I want the truth, all of it. On the record. I pulled out my phone and started recording. What the hell are you doing? Liam demanded. Documenting this conversation for legal purposes. Turn that off. No. I looked at each of them in turn. You three have spent months lying to me, manipulating me, making me feel like I was going crazy. Now it's time for some honesty. You can't record us without our permission, Tracy said. Actually, I can. This is a one-party consent state, and I'm consenting to record my own conversation. Liam stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. Turn off the phone, Nick. Or what? You'll hit me? I laughed. Go ahead. Assault me on camera. See how that works out for your career? He stopped, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to tell the truth about this affair, about how it started, how long it's been going on, and how you've been using my wife to get information about my business. We don't have to tell you anything, Jenna said. No, you don't. But if you don't, I'm going to post this video on every social media platform in town, along with all the evidence I've collected about your affair and Tracy's involvement. Your choice. They looked at each other, having a silent conversation about how much trouble they were really in. Fine, Jenna said finally. Yes, I've been having an affair with Liam. It started 6 months ago. How? Tracy introduced us at a work function. She said I seemed unhappy, that I deserved better than being married to a contractor who would never amount to anything. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her. I was tired of feeling invisible, tired of feeling like my life was just maintenance. Liam made me feel special. I turned to Liam. Your turn. Tell me about the business information. I don't know what you're talking about. The Henderson Project bids, the client lists, the scheduling information that allowed your firm to underbid 3 of my jobs this year. His face went red. That was just business. Business? You used my wife to steal from me and you call it business? I never asked her for that information. But you didn't stop her from giving it to you. He looked away, which was answer enough. Finally, I turned to Tracy. And you. Tell me why you really encouraged this affair. Because Jenna deserved better than you. Bullshit. Tell them about the money you stole from my company. Tell them why you really wanted to see me suffer. Tracy's composure finally cracked. You destroyed my reputation in this town. You made sure everyone knew I was a thief. You were a thief. I gave you a chance to leave quietly, and you chose to make it public by fighting the termination. I needed that job. Then you shouldn't have stolen from me. The truth was finally out, all of it, recorded and documented. But I wasn't done yet. Jenna, do you want to know the real reason Tracy pushed you toward this affair? Nick, don't, Tracy started. She's been skimming money from her ex-husband's business for 2 years. She needed a distraction, something that would keep people focused on other people's drama, instead of looking too closely at her finances. Jenna turned to Tracy, her face pale. Is that true? Tracy's silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ, Jenna whispered. You used me. You actually used my marriage to cover up your own crimes. Jenna, it wasn't like that. Get away from me. Jenna's voice was cold as winter. Get away from me and don't ever contact me again. Tracy looked around desperately, but found no allies. She walked back to her car alone, her shoulders shaking with sobs. That left Jenna, Liam, and me standing on the dock as the sun disappeared behind the horizon. So what now? Liam asked. Now you leave town, I said. Tonight. Find a job somewhere else because your career here is over. You can't make me. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see I wasn't bluffing. I've got recordings of you admitting to industrial espionage. I've got evidence of you using your position to coerce a subordinate into an affair. And I've got about 20 years of pent-up rage